In terms of its fame and genre as science fiction, Lucas's movie stands alone here. But as I suggested earlier, otherwise it's a year of doubles. So we move on to a pair of films adapted from graphic novels and featuring Americans seeking violent revenge. The first is Sin City, in which director Robert Rodriguez, who also made Spy Kids and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, uses the newest digital techniques to create a look which rewinds to cinema's oldest style, black and white, but with a twist.
Goldie's dead. She was murdered and I was right here when it happened. I've been framed for murder and the cops are in on it. No reason at all to play it quiet. No reason to play it any way but my way. Whoever killed you is gonna pay, Goldie.
Open up, police.
I'll be right out.
Film inspired by graphic fiction is A History of Violence by David Cronenberg, who began one of cinema's greatest moral controversies with his film Crash. In A History of Violence, the owner of an Indiana diner, who becomes a hero for thwarting an armed robbery, is then accused by a threatening newcomer to the town of having once been a violent gangster. Two violent movies adapted from graphic novels, Sin City and A History of Violence. Julie, they worked as books with pictures in them. Do they work as pictures?
Yes, I think they both do, actually. Sin City is the kind of film I would normally loathe, and I thought I was going to be completely repelled by it. I actually enjoyed it much more than I thought. I thought it's very funny. It's visually fantastic. In the end, it's just a baggy old thing that's about nothing. And I found a few days later, it had dissolved out of my mind completely. So I don't really rate it, but it's fun. But I think the Cronenberg History of Violence is one of the most exciting films I've ever seen, in the sense of having to hold my breath all the way through it. The reason it's brilliant is you've got, it's my favourite thing, a very normal, warm family into which something immensely sinister and somehow inexplicable comes. The only thing that I think it has against it, in the end for me this was a weakness, is it's not really a film about anything but thuggery and violence. I don't think it really has a deep centre to it, but incredible piece of filmmaking.
Tom Pauling.
Well, it surely, I mean, since everything we've seen is really on the same thing, it's about the violence endemic in American history. In a way, it's like a sort of Robert Frost poem. It's his subject. It's also like a Hawthorne short story, a sense of evil and puritanism there. But it's flawed by the sex scenes and by a certain tricksiness.
This is A History of Violence.
Yeah, History of Violence. Sin City, similar thing, endemic violence, corruption of the political system, a deep attack on the Catholic Church, and a sense of absolutely living in a world that's irredeemably corrupt and evil and menacing and terrible. They're both like that. I thought that History of Violence, eventually, I thought its Greek tragic qualities disappeared. There's something tricksy about it and empty, finally.
Mark Hammond, to summarise the reaction here, it seems to me that people have reacted to Robert Rodriguez's Sin City as a triumph of technique, the way it looks on screen, and the buzz around A History of Violence, David Cronenberg, has been about the theme. I mean, that's really what people responded to.
Well, I think, the thing with Sin City is it is visually very interesting. It bridges the gap between animation and live action. It looks fantastic, but it is essentially heartless. I mean, it's entertainingly heartless, but it is heartless. It's also too long. History of Violence, for me, I think is the best thing I've seen here. I think I disagree completely about it being only about thuggery. One of the things that David Cronenberg manages to do is to take a genre piece, because he comes from genre, he's a horror film director, and all his greatest horror films are profoundly moral in that they deal with the human condition. And what he does here is he takes a genre piece and gives it a real human heart. I mean, to me, I really believed in the central pair of characters, the husband and wife, who may or may not know each other. I thought even when it went off into the generic set pieces, about two-thirds of the way through, there's a kind of a violent action set piece, which is much more, generic rather than deep. It still manages to keep its human characteristics to the front. And at the end, I was crying. I was simply reduced to tears.
It loses itself at the end. It's a completely incredible set piece. I mean, utterly incredible, and the motivation for the meeting between the two brothers is not established.
I thought that was a real weakness.
We're not going to give away too much more time. I want to pick up Mark Hammond because David Cronenberg, A History of Violence, horrifying level of violence which I had trouble with. I have to look away. Now, you've told me I have to try to look it in the eye, and
You
I
do.
try to. My worry with Cronenberg always
Yeah.
is that he's posing as a moralist, but in fact just
He
wants to
enjoys the
direct
violence.
fantastically
No,
violent
No, no,
movies.
I
It seems to me he does
He's
enjoy
complicit
it.
with the violence.
I think completely the opposite. I think he poses as an amoralist, which is exactly why people throw their hands up, say, "Oh, Crash," or this disreputable filmmaker. But in fact, within all the fleshy stuff that he puts on screen, there is real humanity, real compassion. I mean, really. I mean, if you look, for example, at a film like Dead Ringers that he made before, or a film like Crash, I think these are films which are fundamentally concerned with the relationship between the soul and the body. He's a fleshy director. That does not mean he's a depraved director. And I honestly found real, genuine humanism in A History of
because
Violence.
there's not enough
Why does
motivation
everyone
in
get
the central
shot? Why do they always
character.
have to have their face flayed
Because
off?
you have to see the effect
Yeah,
of
I think
violence.
absolutely. I hate violence, and I was able to look at it, and I think it had the right effect on me. But I so disagree with Tom. I think one of the reasons why this is a film, it is a little empty at the end. But the reason I like it, the sex scenes are fantastic, and without
beautifully done.
it would because I believed in this relationship between this husband and wife. There are only actually a couple of sex scenes, but they are quite in your face.
Can we just talk about the second
They're
phase?
real-
And it is, but you see, I was very worried about that because...
the second sex scene?
The second sex scene. We have to hint at what happens. There is a moment of violence, of real violence between the couple, and not for the first time at all in cinema it becomes what you could call a sex scene, a rape scene, a lovemaking scene. It felt to me more like rape. I was very uncomfortable with that scene.
Yeah, but also there's a complicity with that violence, and there's a complicity with another scene of violence where his son gets angry when he's being bullied, and then I thought the other scenes, he's admiring this, and he's not developing the character and psychology of the central character in any meaningful way.
But it's such a disturbing film. That's why,
it
that's
is
why I don't agree
disturbing.
with that. It should be a disturbing film, and it is a disturbing film. But so back to that sex scene, which I thought was brilliant because it had so many different things in it. It had what you imagined the characters were feeling. It had what you were feeling about what you imagined the characters were feeling. It's not rape. It's much more complex than that. It's about the possibility of violence. And the fact that these two people are very intimate, that they're in extremes, something extraordinary has happened between them. And
Just
it's
very quickly
frustration.
finish about Sin City, because Robert Rodriguez, really interesting director,
Yes.
he's using digital technology. We gave a sense of it. It is thrilling, the original.
It's
to look at.
fantastic to look at. I mean, it really does.
It's black and white, flat black and white with flashes of colour.
Yeah, and it's beautifully designed, and the actors are almost somewhere between being human and being cartoon characters, particularly, for example, the Mickey Rourke character. And on design level, it really is flawless, but it's baggy, it's too long.
Well, Sin City opens in Britain the week after next, A History of Violence later in the year.